Oh, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the NBA season, folks. Just 8 games remaining for the Warriors, and arguably the biggest game of the year is tomorrow night. We're recording this on Monday, March 31st. When you hit April in the NBA season, you know S-bombs are getting real. And I've got Sam Gordon, beat reporter. That means he travels with the team. He's as insider as it gets. He covers the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle, and he joins me next. We're talking Dubs. They've got a massive game tomorrow in Memphis. That's where Sam is. Let's break it all down. This is the Golden Days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win.
We are going to win the championship.
Let's go. In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up.
Sam Gordon in this is out. Welcome to the Golden Days. I'm your host for the evening, Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at DogWild. Over on Twitter, my handle is @SurfJournalist. You can follow the program on both those platforms at Golden Days Pod. Before we bring Sam on the show, let's give some love to our sponsors. Real quickly here, the folks who fund this operation. Visit Humboldt is up first. You know what? I'm going to bring Sam on the show right now. This is actually a good moment. Sam, sorry to put you on the spot here. Hope you're ready. And Sam, great to see you. I like bringing guests on the show for this ad read because it's all about an incredible travel destination. It's all about a getaway for the NorCal crew. And you're not a NorCal native, dude. You moved here from Vegas. That's where you were doing some sports reporting. I believe you're from Minnesota. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But have you ever traveled north to Humboldt, man? I'd love to get your reaction because if you haven't, I'm going to set you up. And if you have, I'd love to hear your testimonial.
I have never been to Humboldt. Tell me more.
So I believe I'm not going to get personal. I was going to bring up romantic partners. My point is, if you need ideas for a getaway, this is the spot. People call San Francisco and the Bay Area and Sacramento, Northern California. But if you actually look on a map, it's right in the smack middle of the state. The real Northern California is Humboldt County. We're talking giant redwoods, giant sequoias, redwood forests that go all the way to the ocean with these huge cliffs and these steep, precipitous drop-offs right to the ocean. It is stunning. Some of the best hiking trails on the planet, some of the best breweries on the planet, wineries, restaurants. This video package, if you're watching on YouTube, just gives you a glimpse of the beauty, the nature of Humboldt County. If you need a place to stay, if you need ideas for things to do, you can DM me. I called the place home once upon a time, and I still travel up there at least once a year because I can't get enough of Humboldt County. Check out visithumboldt.com again for a resource regarding places to stay, a resource for things to do, state parks, national parks, you name it, Humboldt's got it, and it's a short drive from the San Francisco Bay Area. Visit Humboldt.com is the website. Today's episode also brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform. The March Madness pandemonium is wrapping up. We got the Final Four now upon us, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are played. So head to the BetOnline casino. Head to the BetOnline website. Play their Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino on top of all the sports action. BetOnline, the game starts here. And Sam Gordon, I cannot elude, or I can't exude the exuberance that I have. Sorry for the redundancy there of having Sam on our program. Incredibly excited to have the Warriors beat reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle joining us from Memphis, one of the funky towns of our great country. Great to see you. And how is what is your perspective on the city of Memphis? A weird place, man. You've got Mississippi bordering it. You've got Arkansas. You've got Tennessee. It's a wild place. Good to see you, brother. And how is Memphis treating you?
I appreciate you having me, Cyrus. Pleasure to be on the show again. Memphis is treating me well. You know, I got love for Memphis. I think my third time here now on the beat, and one of my good friends, Jonah Dillon, writes for the Commercial Appeal, covers Memphis football and the Grizzlies. We work together in Vegas, so every time I come through here, we always connect. I think we're getting lunch tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing him, and definitely appreciate the energy, the spirit of the city, as well as its history. Had the chance to check out the Civil Rights Museum last time I was here. It was awesome. Might go back tomorrow, hoping to check it out tomorrow too. And of course, a big basketball game tomorrow night at FedEx Forum, Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. A lot on the line. All these games have mattered for quite some time. But the Warriors are kicking off a stretch here, right, in Memphis, 4 straight games with the 4 teams directly ahead of them in the standings in succeeding order, right? Playing the 5th place team, and the 4th place team, the 3rd place team, and the 2nd place team all in a row. So huge games, big stakes, and an opportunity for the Warriors to get a feel for where they stand going into the postseason. And there will be postseason, right? We know that to some capacity, at least the play-in. But really the toughest stretch of their schedule by a country mile since they've acquired Jimmy Butler, and kind of a good barometer to see where they're at and what they need to kind of get cleaned up before any kind of playoff run.
That's an insane 4-game stretch, dude. They play the Grizzlies tomorrow. We're gonna break down the significance of that from a playoff positioning perspective. Lakers Thursday. That's in LA. And the Lakers have won the first 3 games they played against each other. So Golden State's trying to avoid a 4-game sweep there. Very next night, they're trying to avoid a season sweep by the Nuggets, who they've lost 9 straight to, and then the Houston Rockets. That is insanity. You're absolutely right. This is a litmus test of epic proportions for this team. A team that when Steph and Jimmy Butler were playing together are 17-2. So we're about to find out just how special that group is. I want to start things off, though, Sam, as the insider, as someone who knows as much as anyone else when it comes to this team. Jonathan Kuminga went down with an injury last night, and Warriors PR issued a tweet saying that it was his ankle that was the concern. But then today, I saw a report that said it was the pelvis, a.k.a. the tailbone, even though they're 2 different things. I feel like we're now associating the coccyx and the pelvis is one thing, but he fell hard on his ass. And Stephen Curry suffered a similar injury a couple weeks ago. It's an injury that's not going to have any long-term ramifications, but it hurts like a bitch when it happens. What's the latest from Jonathan Kuminga from what you're seeing and hearing?
Yeah, I had a chance to check in with him in passing in the locker room last night, and he said, and quote, "I'm straight," and asked him if he thought he was going to miss, any time, and he said, "I hope not." Right now, you would suspect if there's anything, again, questionable on the injury report, as you mentioned, with the pelvic contusion. So there's a chance he plays, but you would imagine if he's not completely right, the Warriors tend to err on the side of caution. Super important to be at full strength going into the postseason, right? And you can't, injuries are part of the game that this happens. But all things considered, doesn't seem to be too serious. It would imagine there's Warriors have shoot around tomorrow. Imagine he'll test things out in the morning, kind of see how he feels, and we'll get a better idea sometime tomorrow. But not the kind of injury that's going to keep him out long term by any means. And they're going to imagine he'll be in the fold pretty quickly here.
And I'm glad you said that in terms of you communicating with him and him giving you the it's good signal, basically. I was a little concerned because, again, that report, I don't know why it stated that, but it did. It indicated that his ankle was the issue, and I was a little worried if that is what the injury was, is that he somehow tweaked the ankle again. And then today we find out it was not an ankle, and I don't know if that was erroneous or if maybe that was an issue, but it wasn't as major as, who knows? That was kind of bizarre. Right. So JK, okay, that's great to hear. What is your thoughts, by the way, on JK and Gary Payton II, if you don't mind diving into that for a second? Because GP2, I feel like his role had been expanding in recent weeks. He was playing some great ball. I've broken down his 3-point shooting percentage and how bad it was in November, December, and then how good it was in January, February, and I think March. He shot well over 40%.
46% March.
That's a great number. But, he gets hurt now. Steve Kerr, we hear that attribution where he basically alludes to Jonathan Kuminga's minutes increasing because of the injury. So he basically revealed that those two, in terms of rotations and lineups, were connected in a certain regard, because with GP2 down, Kuminga's role and minutes are going to increase, which I thought was wild. But what are you hearing about GP2? Because if you tear a ligament in your shooting hand, that seems pretty serious. I also think it's wild that we're getting these reevaluation dates for him of just a week. Like, I think that's the last report we got, was he's going to get reevaluated in a week. I don't know if I've ever seen a player tear a ligament in his shooting hand, come back in that soon of a time frame. You would know more than me, sir. Take it away.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with Jonathan Kuminga. In regards to Jonathan Kuminga, well, we can start with GP2 first, right? Because they kind of go hand in hand. The initial timeline or kind of timetable that I had heard was 3 to 6 weeks for a potential return. Three obviously being on the short end of things, and that's if the thumb is stabilized. And this is just what I've heard, right? If the thumb is stabilized, he can begin doing some rehab and stuff like that, and then it's about pain management. And again, I wrote a little bit about this. I consulted with a medical professional. I'm not a doctor by any means, just a reporter.
But that's what a reporter does. They ask doctors, right? And then you report what they tell you. So
yeah. So if the pain, I mean. At a certain point, it's going to be about pain management for Gary Payton II. And look, nothing's keeping him out of these high leverage games. Let's just call it what it is. As soon as he's able to come back, he's going to be able to come back. He has been getting in cardio, participating, in practices to the extent that he can, working on stuff with his right hand. The Warriors practice in San Antonio, saw him on the practice court after practice, and then saw him, get a little bit of work in with his right hand in New Orleans as well. So. Obviously the Warriors want him back. You nailed it. He was playing fantastic. He was over 11 points a game, shooting 60+% from the floor, and just a dynamic, really effective fit with the Jimmy Butler Warriors, right? I mean, you've seen what he's been able to do here for 4 years with the space, with the playmaking, with playing off of Jimmy Butler. In addition to Steph Curry and Draymond Green, he was rolling, he was finishing, he was defending, and he was, as you mentioned, knocking down jumpers and playing with a lot of confidence. So. The Warriors obviously want him back in the lineup as soon as possible, and as this, to segue into what that means for Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, Steve Kerr straight up said when we were talking to him in New Orleans, asking him about just kind of what that means for the rotation, that the opportunity, the minutes that Gary Payton was getting 20-ish a game, we're going to be there for Jonathan Kuminga, who was getting his 20 to 24 minutes a game. But beyond the minutes, I think kind of what I took away from that is. The stylistically how Jonathan Kuminga can fit with this particular group with playing with Jimmy Butler, knowing that he's going to have the ball more, knowing that Kuminga's usage on the ball isn't going to be what it was beforehand. That's screening, cutting, finishing, playing high-level defense, getting out in transition, doing all the things that Gary Payton II does and does extremely well when he's healthy, when he's available, but doing those with a 6'7", 230-pound frame, is one of the best athletes in the NBA, somebody that profiles, that has the skills and skill set to become a premier point of attack defender on the wing. So that's kind of what I gleaned from that is that's how he's going to maximize his production, maximize his role, and best help this team win right now. That doesn't mean don't attack mismatches when they're there. Don't get downhill. We saw some of that pick and roll with Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga on Friday against the Pelicans, with Kuminga both handling the ball, inverted pick and rolls, and also screening. Like, he's going to get his opportunity to have the ball in his hands and make plays here and there, but it's got to be within the flow like Gary Payton II gets his offense. It's got to be out in transition, cutting, screening, taking open shots when they're available within the rhythm of the offense. That's the focus. And we saw that, right? Again, this is pre-Jimmy Butler, but we saw that come into focus during that 6-game stretch before Jonathan Kuminga got hurt in early January, where he was 24-8. Everything was in rhythm. He wasn't holding the ball. He was screening. He was cutting. He was attacking. He was attacking closeouts. He was playing in transition, and showed kind of the two-way, fit that they want him to have in order to maximize this whole run. So we're going to see what happens these last 8 games. Obviously, big opportunity ahead for him in these minutes, and big picture, if the Warriors are going to make some real noise in the postseason, given his skill set, given what he has to the roster, they're going to need him to be playing, really good basketball and collectively playing good basketball that involves him. So we're going to get 8 more games for the Warriors to figure that out, and then we'll see, how the cookie crumbles going in the postseason. Yeah,
and call me crazy, but in a lot of ways, and I never am going to wish injury on anyone. I'm not sitting here saying I'm stoked that GP2 got injured. What I am saying, though, is that it might have been a bit of a blessing for this team because Steve Kerr has his crutches, meaning certain players, like if he likes them, they're going to play no matter what. And GP2 has really slid into the favorability side of Steve Kerr's, players that he favors versus those that he doesn't. And like Armando Lara, for example, in the chat writes that Kerr thinking Jonathan Kuminga is just a role player. I don't know if that's loser talk. That might be a little hyperbolic, but I don't agree with how Steve Kerr sees Kuminga. And the fact that he sees him as a role player and that he admitted publicly there is a correlation there in terms of GP2 and Kuminga's roles. Steve Kerr and I, we're just going to have to strongly agree to disagree in terms of how to handle these young players. And that includes Jonathan Kuminga. He's not a role player, and that's not the right way to use him, in my opinion. But with that said, the GP2 injury now basically is one less player that Steve Kerr can go to in place of Kuminga. It's basically going to force Kuminga to get more minutes. I look at Kuminga's track record. This is year 4 right now. The fact that he's never averaged 30 minutes a game once is wild to me. I mean, that is not how you develop talent. I've never seen a lottery pick, let alone a rookie, emerge and thrive and develop when they're not getting minutes, 30 plus minimum a night. You look at any player in the history of the game and you look at their box score and you go back to their rookie second, third years, they were getting minimum 30 minutes a game. I think Jonathan Kuminga's career high is like 26. So in that vein, I think there might be some positive aspect of the GP2 injury in the sense that Kuminga may get a bigger role. I could be wrong with that. That's just my opinion. It's just a take. But what I want to ask you, following up on that, thank you for just listening to my opinion there, is you're around this team all the time. And one thing I'm really curious about, and I think a lot of people are curious as well, is from your perspective, seeing the team. I know you're not in there during the actual practices, but the moment the private part of it's over, you're right there. You're around these guys all the time. You see them communicating when the cameras aren't on. What do you see with Kerr and Kuminga? Like, are they friendly? Like, do they talk a lot? Are they just going about their own business and they rarely actually cross paths? Like, from your perspective as a reporter covering this team, what is the relationship with Kuminga and Kerr? Are they close? Is it just friendly and professional? Your perspective, sir.
I don't necessarily know the ins and outs, but it's not any kind of relationship that I can differentiate from necessarily any other relationship on the team.
Okay.
I mean, he's good. Kuminga's been in the program for 4 years now, right? There's definitely, I mean, the expectations have been communicated. I'm sure they've been communicated. I mean, they've been communicated to us in various ways, right? So you would assume that they're being communicated to him, and there's absolutely no doubt about it that he's in a really tough spot. That he just is. He's in a tough spot. So and there's an understanding of that from the Kerr, from the Warriors. Like it's totally different now than it was 2 months ago, and the trade obviously happened for a reason, right? There was an understanding that it needed to happen in order to maximize the season, and that's exactly what it did. So acquiring Jimmy Butler has taken the Warriors to this level where they're now going to be a postseason team, where that was very much in question before. Maximizing them as a postseason team is about incorporating how they can best incorporate obviously Kuminga, but everybody else as well, and figuring out what you want to go to here down the stretch. So it's definitely a challenging position. I mean, Kuminga, when he was kind of surging there right at the end of December and in January, it was a completely different role. He had the ball more. And because Jimmy Butler is here, they occupy a lot of the same spots on the floor. And Butler is, again, a very sophisticated playmaker, reader of the floor, creator of offense, demander of double teams, all those things. It's just a new role that Kuminga's having to adapt to on the fly. It's tough. It's tough for everybody involved. It's tough for the whole team. But they're winning. There's a lot of momentum being built into this 4-game stretch, and there's 8 games to iron out these wrinkles with an incredibly accomplished coaching staff that thrives with adjustments, that thrives in postseason situations, and that is going to have an understanding of the best way to deploy Kuminga in a playoff series, and with an understanding that they're going to need him. I mean, they're going to need him in order to be the best versions of themselves. So that's all going to settle itself over the next 8 games. Obviously, right, getting everybody healthy is a priority for the Warriors. It's something that they're aspiring to do. Gary Payton, as you mentioned, has been excellent, and has helped win a championship. There's a lot of trust there, not just with Steve Kerr, but with the team as a collective, and you see why. It's the quick decision making, it's the defense, it's getting off the ball, and it's how well, beyond everything else, how well he plays with Steph Curry, how they activate one another, and how they can play off one another. So that's what it's all about, generally with the Warriors is being able to play and coexist with Steph Curry, the pace, the rhythm of the offense that needs to happen in order to maximize his greatness. And Kuminga has shown that, he showed that in that stretch that he's capable of fitting in there. Now it's about doing it with Butler too. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's a challenge the Warriors are working through and are going to, try and figure out to the best of their ability down the stretch here.
That injury to Kuminga, I don't think could have happened at a worse time for him, because you're right. We were finally seeing what he could be. And then he misses 31 games with an ankle injury. You brought up coaches, man. What is your perspective on Jerry Stackhouse? I love the guy. I think he was exactly what this team needed. A tough, no-nonsense type of coach, defensive-oriented. I love him, man. You're around this team every day. What is your perspective? What are the best words you could put together to describe Jerry Stackhouse?
I mean, he's loved by the team. He gets out there and plays one-on-one with the players at the end of practice, to work them out, right? Like, it's not life or death one-on-one, but he's out there competing at this stage of his life. I think he just turned 50 in November. And you still see that competitive fire come out. He's been a huge part of, kind of reestablishing the defense this year. The Warriors have consistently been a top 10 defensive team all season. I think since they've acquired Jimmy Butler, they are second defensively, right? Since acquiring Jimmy Butler, obviously.
I only know they're seventh overall, I would believe you if
second. This iteration of the Warriors is second defensively, and they've been a top 10 defense all year, right? Even when there was the struggles, even during that midseason lull when the losses were piling up and the offense cratered, like the defense kind of persisted and sustained. So he, there's been talk. I mean, I'm sure you probably heard at press conferences whatnot the talk of the grading system and stuff like that. Guys love that. They love the back and forth that they have with him, the accountability that provides. And I mean, the guy was a relentless competitor and on the basketball court, one of the best players in the NBA during his prime. So he's able to connect with the players in all kinds of ways, able to connect with the coaching staff. And it's been a great partnership with Jerry Stackhouse and the Warriors, no doubt about it.
He's been awesome, dude. And we got Sam Gordon here of the San Francisco Chronicle. You can follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. We had a Ramona Shelburne on the program a couple weeks ago, who I respect tremendously. She has her finger on the pulse of a lot of behind-the-scenes machineries in the NBA. And one thing she brought up, which I thought was fascinating, was not your traditional spacing on a court, which Steve Kerr alludes to a lot. And he references the spacing as an important key variable for determining what rotations and lineups he use, because he wants players to have space around them so that their shot attempts are the least challenged, right? They're the most the highest efficiency, the highest percentages come with open looks, and that's what he's looking for. But Ramona Shelburne presented the concept of vertical spacing, where it isn't just the space around you horizontally, it's also the space above you, because the higher you get, the easier it also is to make baskets as a 10-foot rim. And she alluded to the fact that the Warriors, at least outside of Jonathan Kuminga, don't have a lot of that, right? And they're at least before Quentin Post was promoted and got the guarantee deal, the Warriors had the shortest lineup in the NBA. And so she was making the argument of Kuminga bringing that extra variable that not a lot of other players on this team does, which is vertical spacing, right? Like, and that results in the free throw attempts that he gathers. Yeah. I think he's number one in the team in free throw attempts. And that leads to, you brought up Steph and Kuminga on the floor together. And I'm going to move on from Kuminga real fast. Please forgive me for this last Kuminga question. But what about the Kuminga-Jimmy Butler duo? I know net rating statistics are very subjective. So don't, and I'm telling this to the audience, please don't read too much into this. But when Kuminga and Jimmy Butler are on the floor together, they played 79 minutes together this season, which is not a big number, side note. So this is a small sample size, and they're a minus 27 on the floor together. And again, that doesn't mean a lot. Just it's a fun stat, and it is what it is. But minus 27 when they're on the floor together. You see, in terms of the rotations with Kerr, a lot more of Kuminga playing with Steph than he does with Jimmy Butler. Before, when the Jimmy Butler trade first happened, the idea of Jimmy and Kuminga together was really exciting to me. I was expecting those two to kind of just take off and dominate the NBA together, and we haven't seen that yet. I don't think we're never going to see it. I think it's just taking time to develop. I could be wrong on all this. Your perspective on Jimmy and Kuminga, like, do you see those two working well together? Are there issues you're seeing maybe that they need to work out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they definitely, I mean, we'll see to what extent they're able to work it out. That's obviously a goal. You want to be able to have your most athletic, your longest, your most physical, like, whatever the most physicality that you can have on the floor. That also, with the proper balance of skill and feel and all those things you want, right? So that being said, you want to be able to put lineups out there where your wings are both 6'7", 6'8", and sturdy. That's a positive for them defensively. Obviously, the appeal is there. But it's too low volume, low, varying efficiency, 3-point shooters. And Jimmy Butler is going to play on the ball when a lot in half court sets for obvious reasons, because he's great on the ball. He can go to the basket. He can draw double teams from the post. He can, we know all the reasons that he's going to have the ball. And those two together, take Jonathan Kuminga's off the ball. His defender can kind of sit in the lane. He can gap Kuminga. That throws off driving lanes for Butler. It changes the geometry of the floor. And right now they just haven't figured out the rhythm, how to get efficient actions, and how to develop pace with those two out there, with pace in terms of ball movement to open up those lanes and those cuts and whatnot, and maximize the 5-zone. It's taking time. It's very naturally taking time. And the Warriors have been winning while figuring all these things out. Now, again, I think, as we've discussed, there's going to be, in order to maximize this thing with the Warriors, Kuminga's going to have to be part of it for all the reasons that we've talked about. But there's 8 games to do that, and then there's the playoffs or the postseason or to whatever extent the Warriors go, where you can really hone in and get specific and prep in a way that's so different than you can in the regular season, where you can target specific players and the specific matchups, the specific advantages over the course of a series. And that's where I think you're going to see, those kind of nuances and kinks worked out, or at least the best chance of them getting worked out. It's tough on the fly without a ton of practice time. When Kuminga's out now, he got hurt. Now he's out of the lineup. But overall, to answer your question, it's one of the questions that other teams are asking of this team right now. Hey, can you shoot the ball efficiently enough for us to stop guarding you that way? And the Warriors are going to have to make shots like they did last night, move the ball like they did last night, and play with pace and do all those things to open up their offense in order to show opposing teams they can.
Yeah, and again, the schedule is going to get crazy. We timed tonight's show partly based on your travel schedule. The life of a beat reporter is insane. A lot of it I think is awesome. I mean, you're literally seeing all these different cities. I don't know how much time you have to actually explore. I hope you have a little bit of time to check out the culture and the sites. But it's a grind. Your job is a grind, and you're doing a fantastic job. And you brought up early in the show how these next 4 games are huge. And we try to time the show tonight, again, partly because of your work schedule, partly also because the Memphis Grizzlies and the Celtics played earlier today in a game that had massive ramifications for the Golden State Warriors, with the Grizzlies losing. And they're going through a lot of shit, man. I mean, Taylor Jenkins, head coaches don't normally get fired with 9 games remaining in a season. Yet that is exactly what happened to him. And the post-Taylor Jenkins experience for Memphis has not been great. They lost again. They now have just a half-game lead on the Warriors, which is why this game tomorrow is huge. There's a lot of reasons why tomorrow is huge. It isn't just that Memphis has a half-game lead for the 5 seed. It's also the Clippers won today in Orlando. They've become insanely annoying in terms of the standings, because now they're winning at the same rate that the Warriors are. So if you're a member of Dub Nation, that is just, they're a pest. I think that's the best way to describe them. But so they're right behind. Minnesota won. They're right behind. I think Minnesota and the Clippers are both just a half game behind the Warriors. That just gives you a small taste of why that game tomorrow could easily be considered the biggest of the year. They win, they're the 5 seed. The Lakers, by the way, are losing right now. So if the Warriors win that game tomorrow and the Lakers lose tonight, the Warriors would just be a game behind the Lakers for the 4 seed. This is madness, dude. I mean, this is insane. Is the team caught up in the hype as well? Are they more even keeled? What are you seeing in terms of traveling with the team, man? What is the vibe of the Warriors? Because the start of the road trip sucked. And again, side note, a little sinister from the NBA to to give 5 days around Miami. I mean, before that, Atlanta, after that, New Orleans. I mean, the fact that Steve Kerr got his team in check and didn't let them enjoy New Orleans, that's a bravo in and of itself, because New Orleans is a fun-ass town. That schedule was sinister. I've never seen anything like that, but thankfully they had that massive demolition in San Antonio last night, a 42-point victory, I'm sorry. What's the vibe, man? What are you feeling and sensing from the team going into Memphis tomorrow night? A huge game.
Yeah, I think it's all business. And, at the same time, I mean, enjoying this journey too. These games matter. Like, these are big games. And in January, I mean, it didn't seem like there were going to be that many big games for this team. So yeah, it's all business. It's all focus. But I sense an enjoyment, a camaraderie from this group. I sense an appreciation. This is a veteran crew, right? Steph Curry's 37, Draymond Green is 35, Jimmy Butler is 35. This is Steve Kerr's 11th year coaching this team, right? This is this group. The veterans have experienced, and Jimmy Butler's only been here, for a couple months, but in his career, right? I mean, he's a lot of deep playoff runs and, come really close. And, with the 4-time champions, getting certainly closer to the end than the beginning, right? There's an appreciation for, I think, every part of this process. And, at least that's kind of what I perceive. And then you're seeing, again, the emergence of these younger players that are contributing and that are helping and that roles are settling for. And, the puzzle of it all coming together, and then the fact that the Warriors are winning while doing it. So but there's focus, but there's an appreciation at the same time for what they're doing. At the same time, these are huge games. I mean, huge games. They don't want to be in the play-in at all. You just don't want to leave. There's random things can happen in single elimination scenarios, right? In the playoff series, wherever the Warriors are seated, there's going to be a level of confidence because of who they have on that coaching staff, because of what they have in that locker room, the experience that they have, that they can adjust and figure out their way through a 7-game series. But being in a single elimination type situation, it would be tough. So they don't want to be in that situation. That's been the stated goal since Jimmy Butler was acquired. And lo and behold, they have a position. They're very much in control of their own destiny and how they stand. And they're going to have to beat really good teams to get to where they want to go. And that's what the playoffs are about. That's what you have to do in the postseason. So no better test in these next 4 games.
Yes, sir. And the Lakers, unfortunately, for the Warriors' sake, they're winning now at home against the Rockets. I doubt we'll know the result of that before the show ends. But regardless, tomorrow's game could mean a lot for the Warriors in terms of moving up to the 5 seed. One team that I feel like straight owns the Warriors are the Nuggets. In your opinion, are the Warriors better off as the 7 seed, a play-in team, so they avoid Denver, or are they better off as a 6 seed, but you have to play Denver hypothetically in the first round? I almost am leaning towards the 7 seed in the play-in because Denver is they're a horrible matchup for the Warriors. Your thoughts?
I think the Warriors would want the 6 seed. The competitors in that locker room, there's no way they're going to avoid anybody, right? Like maybe clearly, right? The Nuggets are not a favorable matchup for the Warriors. The Nuggets have beaten them 9 times in a row. And at the same time, if the Warriors beat them on Friday, that's going to give them – that's all you need is one. I mean, they did put them out in 2022. Granted, that wasn't a fully formed version of this Denver team. That wasn't, Jokic is a champion, and those guys didn't have the championship pedigree then, but they were still very, very good, and they were still at that time a bad matchup. So obviously
Jamal Murray was also out too.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously a worse matchup, now, but – at the same time, you're going to have to beat great teams to win the championship, anyways. So why not get it out of the way,
sir.
when you have to. So,
sir.
I would imagine that's the mentality, even though it is a tough matchup for the obvious reasons.
How do you part of the reason I brought up that GP2 reference earlier in terms of, again, I never want anyone to get hurt. I'm trying to find the positive in every situation, at least when it comes to the Warriors. I don't try to find the positive in my worst enemy situations for obvious reasons, but with the Warriors, I'm going to try to find the positive. And so again, with the GP2 injury, I thought a positive was, okay, more time for Kuminga. He can finally step up and hopefully rediscover the form that he had back in December before the injury. But another reason why the GP2 thing, I think, could be a blessing in disguise is because I'm not a fan of starting lineups where Jimmy Butler is the tallest player. Which I know is we're going to see a lot of with these small ball lineups, right? I think the ideal lineup that we're seeing on a routine basis that we're going to see for these last 8 games is Steph, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. But that lineup is small. And for a little while there, we were seeing GP2 in the starting lineup for when Stephen Curry was hurt. I've never like that's I guess that's the key difference between Kerr and I in terms of philosophies is he doesn't, I don't think he values size as much as most other coaches. Would you agree with that? What's your take on Steve Kerr and the fact that size in a sport of basketball, which you ask pretty much any other coach, they'll tell you it's one of the most important variables, not the case with Steve Kerr? Your thoughts?
Four rings, cook the whole
I know,
league.
I know, but that's a lazy answer,
ball,
Sam.
right?
Come on, man.
I mean, but this group is 11-0. This certain small ball lineup is 11-0. It has the best defensive rating out of any group that's played 100 minutes since the trade deadline. And again, these are it might be a lazy answer, but that's how they won, and it's still working. And it's
they weren't this small, but real quick, Sam, they weren't this small when they won their titles. Sure, but they also were more talented. There was more talent there in general, right? Like they were just a more talented team. This isn't one of the more talented Warriors teams, so it's requiring more I guess unconventional lineups, or I think just different nuances. They don't have the talent deficit or the talent gap that they once had, the talent advantage that's shrunk. That's why they're in this situation to begin with. So yeah, I think all things considered, you want to have as many different lineups as possible for different situations, and getting the development, as you alluded to earlier, the development of Quentin Post has been crucial for this team. It's also why Jonathan Kuminga, reintegrating and finding his form is so important, because of the size that he has, and the size that he has on the wing and the physicality that he has on the wing. But this has been the Warriors' identity and brand for the last 11 years, and they're still one of the best rebounding teams in the league. They lead the league in they're near the top of the league in open shots generated. They've been a top 10 defense all year. It has required, again, a lot of heavy lifting from Draymond Green and the group defensively and the group at times, but this is how the Warriors have become the Warriors, and this is the brand of basketball that they've championed, and it's still effective. So yeah, there's some kinks and things that they need to iron out, and that's what the rest of the season and experimenting down the stretch while trying to win games, right? It's not pure experimentation, but seeing what things that they can go to, figuring out what they can go to, what lineups they can trust, what bigger lineups they can go to. There's an understanding that there's gonna be time for size where they're gonna have to go bigger and play bigger. But in that Miami game, even in the Miami game, it was a 1-point game at the end of the first quarter, right? That small starting lineup notwithstanding, the Heat were just better that night. So I think that's the brand of basketball the Warriors want to play, and it's still working. Here's why I will agree to disagree on this. The 4 title teams, Klay Thompson was your shooting guard. He's 6'7". He's a 3-point machine. Brandon Pajemski is getting there, but he's no Klay. 2 of those title teams had Kevin Durant at 7 feet as your small forward or your small ball 4. None of those 4 title teams was starting Draymond at the 5 in the regular season, right? You try to preserve him so that he's not worn down by the time the postseason comes. It's just little things like that, like where you're going from like somewhat traditional lineups, like Kevon Looney was impressive as your starting center in 2022. Again, now you have Draymond. I don't know. I don't like the strain it puts on this team. Like I see them out there, and you're right. They're winning rebounding battles number-wise, but Steve Kerr also said at the end of last season, maybe they're exerting too much energy winning those rebounding battles, and that's something I got to look at. And I do see some adjustments there. I guess I just feel for the players, man, because every time I see them out there and they're smaller by a significant margin than the opposition, I just don't understand how life could be easier, man. Like, and I've played basketball most of my life. I'm sure you have to, or at least played a lot. And unless something has magically changed since I last played and dribbled the basketball, height was one of the most important variables for very good reason. I think it's there. And you also look at the track record of winning basketball teams, right? Championship teams. And the vast majority were routinely one of the tallest teams in the NBA. There was a direct correlation there. I just hope Steve Kerr does not push it too far, is all I'm trying to say, because these teams are small, man. And I just don't like Draymond being punished down low. I don't like Jimmy Butler being punished down low. Like, Jimmy Butler's not a power forward. He's a 3. Draymond Green can handle the 5, but I don't know if he can handle it for 35 minutes a game. Those are my concerns. I don't know if that sounds crazy to you, but that's my perspective on it. Any last thoughts before we change subjects?
They got to do what they got to do. What they got to do, and it's working. Like they're not in a position where they don't. This isn't the 2017 team where they can manage guys like that. Like, this is where they're at. This is what happens when the roster ages and when young players are developing, and they are pressing what works right now. And then again, playoffs, matchups, situations, those things change. Then there's more variance. They know that they can close games with Kevon Looney. There's an understanding of that they know that. That they've been able to do that for years. They know, pet lineups and stuff, but they don't know that necessarily with this group. And this is the team that they got to figure out how to maximize. And right, since the Jimmy Butler trade, they more or less have been doing that. Now we see what it looks like against 4 other teams that are really competitive in the Western Conference.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here for 1 second. Please forgive me, but I have to ask this. Have you ever criticized Steve Kerr for anything?
I mean, you read my stories. You tell me.
All right, okay. Well, I do actually. I don't see credit. So that's why I'm putting you on the spot right now. Has Steve Kerr ever done anything that you disagreed with? That maybe you think, okay, that doesn't make sense to me, because he does that a lot to me. And then when we do interviews, I like your perspective is he's like borderline perfect, and I don't see that at all, Sam. So I'm curious to know, like, is he really perfect in your eyes? Is he like the best coach on the planet, or is he flawed?
I don't know if I'm in a position to say that. I mean, my spot is to ask questions and to try and gather as much information as I can. And ultimately, he's got 9 championships and just coached the Olympic team to the gold medal, right? That doesn't mean he's perfect. I'm sure if we got into the nitty gritty, there are decisions that we can go into and whatnot. But like, big picture, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. And this team, you have to have top end talent to win championships. You just do. And obviously he had that when they were winning championships, but they haven't had that throughout the course of this season. It could have gone off the rails. It didn't. There was maximum buy-in throughout the course of the season, playing 11 guys, playing 12 guys. And then to incorporate a player like Jimmy Butler on the fly and win like this seamlessly, I think he's done a heck of a coaching job. I can only speak to the interactions that I've had when I've been around covering the team. And is he getting the most out of this group? From my perspective, I mean, look at where this team's at right now. I mean, it could be a heck of a lot worse than where things are. They're playing high leverage, meaningful games. And once the team upgraded in talent, lo and behold, they got better. So it's, at the end of the day, you can only maximize what you have available. And I think in the last decade plus, I mean, who's done that more in the league than Steve Kerr?
Well,
so right?
Last 5 years, they've missed the playoffs three out of the last 5.
Yeah,
they might miss it for a 4th time in 6 years. And the Olympic run, don't forget, man, Stephen Curry had to, again, play the game of his life to avoid a complete disaster in Serbia. I still don't understand the Jason Tatum minutes and the DNPs. I'm actually very happy that happened. So the people who think I'm crazy when I criticize Steve Kerr, there's now evidence on the global scale. He does this sometimes. Like and again, you're the quote you got from the interview that you conducted yourself last year. I revert to that routinely. I commend you endlessly for that, because that's what a good reporter does. They get answers, right? And Steve Kerr, no other reporter ever got this out of him. You did. He admitted to you that a lot of the big decisions he makes is done with his gut, right? With the intuition. And all I'm saying is sometimes that gut goes a little screwy. I'm scratching my head at sometimes what the decisions he's making, but that's just me. Look, you're allowed to express opinions, Sam. I promise you are. I think your editors at the San Francisco Chronicle would actually welcome it. So what's your opinion of this Warriors team, man? Are they a title contender? Are they going to get disappointed? Like opinion. F the objectivity. I want subjectivity. I want takes right now from you, Sam. I know you got it in you. What are the Warriors going to do here, brother?
I think styles make fights, and I think they have a puncher's chance depending on matchups and depending on how things shakes out, right? It's obviously, you mentioned the Denver Nuggets being one of the tougher matchups. There's no doubt about that. I think the Lakers, in a lot of ways, because of their ability to control pace and their positional size with big wings and their ability to slow possessions and attack matchups, might be a tough matchup for them too. But all things considered, I think the Warriors, with the way that they're playing, the defense that they have, the veteran pedigree that they have. And again, it's a 7-game series where you can adjust, and you have guys that have been in the trenches that have won championships. And in the case of Jimmy Butler, who have gotten as close as you possibly can without winning a championship. There's going to be a level of confidence going into any situation in any series, having those, having that kind of pedigree and having those guys in that locker room. That being said, they're not the most talented team in the West. That's played it. We've seen that. There's a big enough sample size to know that they would have to, it would be a heck of an accomplishment to make the conference finals. I mean, to have a really competitive second round series for where this thing was at. Like that would be, you don't get to win you're not winning the title every season. That's not how it necessarily works, especially when you have an older team. The margins are thinner and it gets harder. So I would say a puncher's chance. Oklahoma City has been the class of the West all season long. We understand exactly who they are from an identity perspective. We understand how great defensively they are. They have a closer, their pedigree offensively, all those things. We get it. Everybody else is kind of been in flux at various junctures. So from that standpoint, you get into a matchup and you see what happens. And you're going to have 2-3 days off in between games in the first round for the veteran players. You're going to have the ability to make adjustments and whatnot, which, again, strength of Steve Kerr. We heard Draymond Green talk about that on one of the recent episodes of the show. That's him, not me, talking about his ability to make decisions in playoff games. Like has won the Warriors championships, his ability to adjust. And so that's an advantage that the Warriors are going to have situationally going into these series. So yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle. It's an uphill climb. It's a tough spot for them to be in. But they've definitely given themselves a puncher's chance. I know there's an internal belief that they can get it done. Doesn't mean they will.
I believe it too. I'm like I said, Denver's the only team that scares the ever living shit out of me. You mentioned that the Warriors don't have the talent. Maybe like when you look at the NBA 1 through 30 and we're judging talent, right? Just strictly like 1 through 14 or 15 on a roster. Like how good are these players? I think the Warriors are elite, man. I mean, when you factor in the younger players, whether it's Kuminga, Moody, Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis would probably be getting a lot of minutes on another team, but he's DNP'd right now because of how deep this team is. There were stats in the last broadcast that revealed the depth of this Warriors team and how great they've been this year. They're top 2, I think, in almost every important category except for 3-point shooting. Side note, I'm going to ask you about that because you wrote a fantastic story highlighting that recent struggle. But I think the talent is there, man. I think they look at OKC and their mentality is, we can beat them. I don't think they have any confidence issues with OKC. Denver, that size, Aaron Gordon as the second biggest guy, like that is a massive concern for me. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, Sam. Young West 79 in the chat writes that he hopes I end up getting a Steve Kerr tattoo. I have promised, given my word, that if the Warriors win a title this year, and my biggest gripe is that I do feel, as crazy as this may sound, that this Warriors dynasty has underachieved a bit. Stephen Curry should have 5 rings, in my opinion. When you break it down season by season, that's me. And to me, again, this is all just my subjective takes. Justice will be served if Stephen Curry has one for the thumb. If that happens, I will get a Steve Kerr tattoo, and I will never criticize the man again. I've made that promise, and I stick to my word. That is who I am, sir. So I don't know if you think that's crazy, Sam, but that's how serious I am about Steph and wanting him to get the legacy, the resume that I think he deserves and has earned in his career. But I will get the tattoo, man. I really do. And Amos Sis writes, like, underachieved is crazy. But again, they won the title in 2022. What they did the year after is where the source of my angst originates, right? Like Bob Myers had a vision and Steve Kerr completely deviated from that. And Myers left and the Warriors for 2.5 years were suddenly like underachieving. I do believe that. That's we can do another show on that if you want for folks like AIM, for example, but that's my opinion. There's no hard facts to substantiate that. But with all that said, dude, you wrote a story recently about the Warriors 3-point shooting. A department that you would think they'd normally be among the league leaders in, but they haven't lately. They've been struggling. Draymond Green, for example, a player who for the last year and 3/4 of a season has rediscovered his 3-point stroke. Buddy Hield started the season great, went through 2 months of just utter shit in terms of 3-point shooting. He couldn't hit anything. He was like hovering at 29%. And then thankfully he's rediscovered his stroke. But recently the 3-point shot has not been falling. You wrote a piece about that. What do you think is going on there? Is it just are they just going through the motions? Is it just a parabolic, like there's ups and downs and they're currently in the down of it? Your take on the Warriors struggling recently with the 3-point shot, and will they rediscover it?
I'm going to get to that in 1 second. I just want to make abundantly clear, yes, the Warriors are very talented, but Oklahoma City is having a historic regular season. And to the roster that they've developed, the length, the defense, all those things, the reasons that they're, champion Western Conference favorites, like they've been really, really good this year and feel like the class of the West. Like it would be an upset if the Warriors got out of the West. And I guess that's what I'm saying. They're obviously very talented, and they are one of the teams that are in position to have, I believe, a puncher's chance. But
you're absolutely right with that. And the odds makers would also substantiate that too. Sorry to go
yeah. And the Warriors are confident they can beat anybody. And that's a prerequisite. Without that, you're not doing anything. They have that. So that's step one. And step two is obviously finishing the season, securing a playoff a series. We'll see what happens there. I digress. Regarding the shooting, Klay Thompson's not on the team anymore. And he's one of the best shooters of all time. And Buddy Hield is a very good shooter, and he's not Klay Thompson. And that's okay. He still, through the ups and downs, demands defensive coverage, demands attention defensively when he's moving, when he's spotting up. That opens up lanes. He's still important to what the Warriors offense is doing, but he's not having necessarily a banner year from three. And then,
Well, real quick, Sam, I don't know if this is a bold take or not. Even at this point in time, on March 31st, I would take Buddy Hield over Klay Thompson today. And this is factoring everything in, contract included. He's half the cost, I think more than that. And even though the 3-point shot's not as consistent as Klay's, if you compare percentages, they're actually very close. And Buddy's doing a lot of things that Klay was not doing as much of in his last couple
Yeah.
Attacking the paint, stuff like that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just talking in terms of, Klay last year I think he was 4th or 5th. He was top 5 in the league in threes, and he was high volume and high accuracy. So the numbers, the percentages, they were better last year for that reason. So there's just not as many, great shooters on the roster in general. And then, you mentioned Draymond Green. He has to shoot the ones that are open. You got to knock some of those down. He has been for the most part this season. They just haven't been falling. Teams are going to continue to give him. He's not going to get hard closeouts. Jimmy Butler is not going to get hard closeouts. Now maybe 5 seconds left in the fourth quarter, sure, but he's not going to demand hard closeouts. Jonathan Kuminga is not demanding hard closeouts from the opposing teams. So those shots aren't going in, the paint shrinks, and you have a 2-week stretch like the Warriors, just had, where they were in the bottom of the league in offensive rating, winning games with their defense, because that's persisted, that's been consistent. But yeah, throughout, big sample size. We're 74 games through. Warriors are 16th in collective 3-point percentage. So obviously you have Stephen Curry. You're always going to have gravity. You're always going to have, his movement off the ball, especially off the ball, opening shots up for guys. There are certainly players on this team that are capable of making threes and capable of getting hot and putting up good percentages for an extended stretch. But big picture, just not quite the same volume of shooting. And it's, again, right? This is why the Warriors are fighting to secure a series in the 5 or 6 spot and not, what they were in 2017. It's just not the same team. So, yeah, the shooting isn't as good. But, hey, maybe it's good enough to get through, a few rounds in the playoffs. It might be. We got to.
I think it is. I really do.
Again, we're going to see these next 4 games, what kind of shots they can create and what kind of shots they knock down against playoff caliber opposition. Really good defensive team in Houston. The Lakers have been okay defensively the last, for the most part of the season, but had that 2-month stretch where they were really good. Memphis is a solid defensive team, even if there's been a little bit of regression. Like we're going to learn some things potentially about this team these next 4 games that we haven't necessarily seen because of the schedule the last couple months.
And I think going back to the ebbs and flows of a team and their shooting, Armando Lara brings up, why is Moses Moody shooting poorly? Lately, he has. He had one game in particular where he was 0 of 9, but then he shot the ball well last game. And on the season, Moses Moody, his 3-point percentage is at 37. You can live with that. And this is also why I personally think Quentin Post should be starting. He's shooting 41.9% from deep. The Warriors have never had a stretch 5 before. I love this kid, dude. A little surprising to me that he's 25. He's not as young as people think he is. I mean, he's a rookie, but I think he did the 2 years of military service and then 4 years of college, and suddenly he's a 25-year-old rookie. But I love this kid. I think he's fantastic. And Sam, I know you got to get going, man. I just looked at the clock. We've been doing this for almost an hour, brother, and you are fantastic. I know I challenged you with a couple of hard questions there. Thank you for putting up with that. I'm just trying to entertain the audience, man. Before you go, I have one final question for you, if you don't mind, sir. A lot of people were concerned about Jimmy Butler when he first got traded here. Some people thought maybe he would bring a diva mentality. He would be a disruptive force behind the scenes. And all I'm seeing is the complete opposite. What is your take on the Jimmy Butler experience, which to me has been beautiful so far?
Been great. It's been fantastic, right? I mean, everything that you hear at the press conferences lines up with what I've seen behind the scenes. I mean, like I mentioned, I caught the kind of the cool down in practice on Saturday in San Antonio, and there Jimmy Butler is playing one-on-one with everybody, playing king of the court, going hard, full speed, game speed, right? I mean, the focus is 100% on winning. You see that with the way he plays, right? He don't care. He doesn't care about his numbers. He hasn't for a long time. He's bonded with Draymond Green. He's bonded with Stephen Curry. He's fit in perfectly in the locker room. It's all about winning for him. And it's worked out seamlessly, right? Can't speak to what happened in Miami, right? The stories are out there. People can read, all we can go off of, all I've seen is what I've seen in Golden State. And that's him being a tremendous veteran in the locker room. Obviously a great player on the floor who's helped turn this thing around regardless of what the statistics say. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs, because you have a feeling, in order to maximize this playoff run, the scoring is going to have, there's going to be some games where they need some big scoring nights from him. But overall, culturally and in terms of on the court, I mean, the fit's been tremendous. I mean, adding Jimmy Butler turned around this season. It developed, it consolidated the roster, it defined roles, and it gave the Warriors, another high player that thrives in high leverage situations. And that's what all these games are from this point forward. So,
oh, sorry. And I was going to say, it may or may not be a hot take or a wild take saying this, but I look at every individual circumstance, right? And you look at Jimmy Butler in every situation where he left, and I feel for Jimmy. I don't think he was wrong in any of those situations. Like, he was on a Timberwolves team where his effort, his talent was far beyond everyone else, and he was frustrated, rightfully so in hindsight. Philadelphia, I don't think it was even his choice to leave. Philadelphia made the decision to go with Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. Massive mistake. Miami, dude, almost single-handedly carries that team to 2 NBA finals. And what did they do in terms of getting him help? I mean, I thought Dame Lillard was heading there. That didn't happen. So who has been his co-pilot in Miami? Never mind the fact that he had a contract extension coming up and for 2 NBA Finals trips, which, side note, made that organization a ton of money. Those postseason runs make your team a lot of money. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars here. And where was the reward for that? No extension. So I can understand why he was disgruntled in these situations. I can't remember what happened in Chicago where he moved on, but I don't know. Is that crazy to you? Because I understand his gripes. That's just me. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, everybody's got their side. And again, since he got to Golden State, he's been nothing but a great teammate and done everything that the coaching staff has asked him to. And you saw him out there. What game was that? Where he's diving for loose balls, diving out of bounds for loose balls in March, right? At age 35, like, he's put everything he has into this season with the Warriors, and it's turned everything around. The locker room is lightened. The team is optimistic about what it feels like it can accomplish, and they're playing meaningful basketball. And no doubt about it, been a huge part of it. So
they are playing like it was borderline unwatchable, dude. Like, it was getting really bad there, and I know you can attest to that as much as anybody, being around the team 24/7. That was turning into a quickly depressing situation, and to see this team do a 180 with Jimmy Butler arriving has been nothing but spectacular. And we shall see how this run goes. Brother, you do phenomenal work for the San Francisco Chronicle. I read every one of your stories.
I appreciate you.
Keep up the great work. Anything you want to promote before you go? Is there any subject we forgot that you feel like we should have touched on that we did not? Last word, sir. Floor is yours.
No, I mean, anything else you got? Anything to chat? I mean, I could take a couple questions from the chat if there's anything else. In the next minute or so. If not,
while you do that, while you pose that, we'll give the audience a chance to bring that up if they have any questions for you. But while we do that, I want to give you a piece of advice if you don't mind. Okay, and the piece of advice is this: it's very serious stuff here. Get ready for this. When you're walking down the street in Memphis, do not go to that restaurant that Draymond Green and the team went to in the 2015 Western Conference Finals. The lore, the legend has it that the Warriors were down 2-1. You like how I made that really serious, and it's not serious at all. In 2015, the Warriors were down 2-1 to the Memphis Grizzlies in the Western Conference Finals, and Draymond Green takes the team out to dinner. Stephen Curry was feeling a little down, and this dinner was, again, supposedly the catalyst for Stephen Curry being reminded, oh, yeah, I'm Steph. I don't – who the hell is this Memphis team? We're going to take care of business here. And it flipped the series. They won 3 straight, and the rest is history. I went and checked out that restaurant because I thought, wow, I'm in Memphis. How often am I here? And that story always stuck out to me. And that place gave me food poisoning. So I can't remember the name of it. Do not go there. That is my strong piece of advice to you. I don't know what your Memphis dinner plans are tonight, or if you already had dinner. It's like what, midnight there now. But you're also, I know you're a night owl like me. So
we did Uber Eats tonight. I didn't. I'm chilling.
So you're good. Okay. I don't see any questions. I feel like we covered a lot, dude. And look, man,
cool.
Get some rest, man. You've been with me for an hour. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, man. Again, people can follow you on Twitter at @BySamGordon. I think last time you were on, you said you're on Blue Sky. Is that something you want to promote, or are you still Twitter only?
I made the Blue Sky account and haven't touched it once.
Same.
It took me years. Like, I spent years on my Twitter, so I don't want to, that's just, I'm just gonna rock with it. It's just a work account. All I do is tweet work stuff. So yeah, I'm good on Twitter. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate everybody who came on the chat and all the comments.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Bruce Morrow does have a question for you real fast before we go, if you don't mind. Really quickly, he's asking, in your opinion, what is the best path for the Warriors to win the championship? I guess maybe to rephrase, who would be the ideal opponents for the Warriors, at least first round? Because I'm looking at Memphis, I'm looking at Houston as your ideal opponents. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Memphis and Houston for sure. The Warriors have won 16 out of 17 against Houston. There's an experience edge. Houston hasn't. Great young team developing, right? A lot of have a defensive identity, have a culture they're building under Ime Udoka, but do they have the savvy to close in big spots in playoff situations? That's something that normally has to be developed over time. Kind of the same thing with Memphis. Warriors obviously took care of them a few years ago. Memphis has their turmoil that they're going through right now and trying to incorporate a new coach and change their offense or revert their offense to, pick and roll around Ja on the fly. So, yeah, I would imagine one of those teams early. And then, look, you're going to have to get through Oklahoma City and probably the Lakers at some point, right? It's not going to be easy. But in terms of first-round series, yeah, probably Houston or Memphis is who they want to play. But, as we talked about, right, Cyrus, the Warriors think they can beat anybody. They have that kind of confidence.
Yes.
If it's Denver in the first round, then that's what they're going to have to do. So we'll see.
They scare me. I don't want to see that. I just remember, what was it, just a year ago where the Lakers faced the Nuggets in the first round, and LeBron and everyone was like, oh, we got to beat them. We're not going to let opponents scare me. And then they get swept again. I don't want to see that. That's the one scenario. Although maybe there might even be a positive spin after that. If they get their asses kicked by the Nuggets, maybe the team will actually sign some big players this offseason. So there might be a silver lining if that happens. But regardless, real quick before we go as well, someone in the chat was asking about your background. Are you from Oakland? I believe you're from Minnesota. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I just got, I just love Oakland and as a town, right? I just like it. So I got the hat that says Oakland. So that's all it is.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I'm sorry. This whole show you have had, this is Oakland. I didn't even see it. My bad on that. I was so distracted. Someone in the chat earlier, Sam, said you remind them of Frank Castle, AKA the Punisher, which I think is an incredible compliment, dude. I don't know if you're watching the Dare. What's up?
Not familiar, but I appreciate it.
His character is badass. John Barenthal, I think, plays the actor plays the Punisher. The Daredevil series is one of my favorite on TV. No, pure compliment, dude. That's a badass character who's good looking as well. So it's a compliment, 100%. So the Punisher was in the house tonight. Sam Gordon. You can follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. You could catch all of his stories with the San Francisco Chronicle. They're still printing. They're in circulation still, right? You haven't gone all digital yet, have you? I know there's a trend, but
yeah,
there's printing newspapers.
They're still print. Yeah, they're still print.
Nice.
Yep. But obviously digital too at sfchronicle.com. So appreciate you having me. Had a great time.
Appreciate
Great
you.
conversation.
That was awesome, man.
So.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow night. Warriors and Grizzlies. Huge game. And make sure you read Sam's coverage because he does a phenomenal job, again, for the San Francisco Chronicle. Follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. Peace. Thanks, Sam. Take care.